Hey guys, it's excuse me. Hey guys, it's your boy M.K.S. Hope everyone's well wherever you are and staying safe and everything. And obviously, I'm back at you with another video. So hopefully, someone out or some people preferably out there will enjoy it, especially Indigenous people or their supporters from Australasia. But yeah, so I want to talk about some of my political ideas or goals, ideals, and that sort of thing for Indigenous people from Australasia, especially, and also Africa as well. So yeah, I can't really think of much else to say in the intro, but please let me know what you think about each point I make and what ideas you would like to see or what you would like to see happen or whatever your ideas or thoughts or whatever are. Anyway, so here goes. So number one, as a form of reparations for what happened or what was done to Indigenous people from Africa and Australasia, I would love to see each person from Africa and Australasia be given like a PC or laptop or possibly even both, and maybe Anstrock or maybe other such technology and tech training equipment and that sort of thing. Apparently, a lot of times in Africa, people learn technology on mobile phones rather than PCs or laptops. But yeah, I think it'd be great to see social enterprises, charities, NGOs, and maybe even businesses themselves like Microsoft or IBM or Oracle giving those sorts of things. And I think it'd be great to see tax exemptions or even governmental support, perhaps maybe even a certain percentage of the tax collections, for instance, in Australasia or in Australia or the Torres and Strait Pacific Islands and New Zealand and is in America, could be given to Indigenous people from those countries respectively, like so. X percentage of whatever, maybe like 1% of all tax receipts could be used to ensure that all possible people, Indigenous people from each of those backgrounds, are given a PC, Anstrock or laptop, or even mobile phone, or even as much tech equipment and tech training equipment as possible. And also, and in Africa as well, sorry. Number two, I'd love to see Indigenous people from Africa and Australasia work together as much as possible and support and encourage each other. And also to be taught about politics, so people teach, especially young people, young Aborigines, Torres and Strait Pacific Islanders, and Maoris about politics, how it works, and that sort of thing. And number three, again, I'd love to see as much support for those groups as possible, and like as much lobbying of governments and ministers to give as much tax receipts, tax collections or things like that towards Indigenous people from both Africa and Australasia, like especially to help them with tech training, help support them in S.T.E.M and making their own games, PC games or video games and things like that, and hopefully helping them to make their own website where they can like make and market and sell games around the world, and just generally as much support as possible, which could be again a form of reparations. Like again, like some of the tax collections could be given to such groups, like maybe even 10% of all taxes that are collected from Australasia. Each country within Australasia could be given to Indigenous communities. I hope that makes sense. So as with all my ideas. Number four, I'd love to listen to Indigenous people from Australasia and Africa as well, to hear about what their aspirations and goals are and what they think politically, what they would like to see, and that sort of thing. And number five, again, I'd love to support them with their aspirations, and again, young people from the youngest possible age learning about politics and S.T.E.M and business and other such areas which could hopefully empower them in the future, especially young people, in particular young girls, learning about things like programming, coding, game making, and things like that. And as I say, to be given PCs, laptops, tech training equipment, so as many people from Indigenous backgrounds as possible to be given those sorts of things across Africa and Australasia is one of my main goals. Number six, I'd love to see Indigenous people from Australasia and also Africa get into sports. I know I mentioned this before, so please forgive me for repeating myself, but yeah, I'd love to see like Italian football teams having their own academies. I'd love to fundraise for Italian teams to have their own academies, and maybe be a world first sort of project where Indigenous people from Africa, Australasia, and even Native Americans as well as Asians would get into to football, and hopefully in the long run it will benefit Italian football as well. So it'd be like a mutual benefit, because those players in the future could play for Italian teams, or even if they are sold on to other teams like English teams or German teams or whatever, that Italian teams would still make money from selling those players on. Hopefully that makes sense. Obviously, you probably have to be a fan of football to understand that a little bit. Number 7, again, I'd love to see similar things with Celtic, as a Celtic fan, as I mentioned before. Number 8, I'd love to see as many allies, especially people of colour. I'd love to encourage as many people of colour as possible, especially my fellow mixed race people, but also Black, Asian mixed race and Native American people around the world. Looking at how we can fundraise for and just generally support Indigenous Australasians and Africans, again, in areas like STEM, so which again, for those who haven't seen my previous videos, STEM, and for those who don't know what STEM means, it stands for science, tech, engineering, and maths. So I'd love to see Indigenous people from Africa and Australasia, again, like making their own video games, their own versions of Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or things like that, obviously legally, as I said. Well, so obviously it'd be done legally, but if they could make their own games, maybe even their own versions of games, but if they had legal permission, or maybe even companies like Sony or Microsoft who owns Xbox, or whatever other companies, maybe the people who used to run Nintendo or Sega could have operations where they help people in Africa to learn how to make video games and sell them around the world, and also they can make games on websites and things like that. So hopefully that will benefit Africans and Indigenous Australasians as well. Number 9, I love to support Indigenous people from Australasia and Africa, as I say, in terms of like art, becoming writers, becoming published writers, selling their artwork and writing all around the world, and like hopefully again that would empower themselves and each other. And I'd love to make my own working with Indigenous people from Africa and Australasia and Native Americans and people from Asia and Latin America and Ireland as well. I'd love to make like a website which helps people to publish their writings and things like that, and also like Indigenous Australians making money from their art as well. So, and also not just, obviously they already sell their art, but making sure that they know how to, making sure they get the training perhaps to, maybe that goes back to STEM as well. So it's like making sure they get their maths right, and are taught about business skills, key business skills, about how to, I'd love to encourage mentors to teach them how to ensure that they make the most possible profit and profit maximize, basically, well, same thing, and don't lose their profits, if you know what I mean. And number 10, some of my more dream-like goals, if you like, for one of a better way of putting it, would be like Indigenous Australasians owning 10% of all property, property and land ownership. Also, maybe like I'll say 10% of all tax collections could go towards investing in their communities, considering they were forcefully removed and lost their land and things like that. So I think this would be, again, going back to reparations. I'd love to encourage as many people as possible to put pressure on the governments of those countries across Australasia, like Australia itself, the Torres and Strait Pacific Islands, and New Zealand and whatnot, to and international organisations to ensure this happens as much as possible. And I'd love to also see like Indigenous Australasians making up 10% of the police force, the judges, legal teams, politicians, like being like at least 10% of politicians being from Indigenous backgrounds from those countries, and so that they would have more of a voice in terms of legally, and also they could work together to ensure that they get legal rights and representation. Although I would discourage anyone from breaking the law personally, but maybe if they're given that encouragement, they could find things, that constructive things, if you like, to do, so they won't get involved in crime. But also, if they are falsely accused or whatever, they have some sort of legal representation to support them. So I think if they support each other and unite together, then that would go even further. So the people who are empowered could help each other as well, and help those who are not as well educated or whatever to explain it to them as best as possible. So I hope all that made sense and you enjoyed some of my quirky ideas. As ever, I'd love to hear your own ideas, and I am out. Peace and out.